weird news. Through some sort of a transcendental anomaly in the space-time continuum, the tunnel of goats is now indoors. We have a tunnel full of goats here in the auditorium. So come on, get out of the bar, come in here because we have Shaun Histed-Todd on any moment now, plus a tunnel of goats, plus Hunt Henderson flocking his book, plus all sorts of other fab, far-out and groovy things. Plus the amazing Miss Joanna Hurd. Say something, Joe.
No.
Yes, I'll say something. I just want to say hello to all my fans who saw the video the other day. I think I look really good on it. Yes, Joe, but you're not supposed to say things like that. Miss Hurd stole the microphone off me there, but she didn't like it when I had her speak. Hello, I wanted to take the microphone off Uncle John because he's stupid. No, I'm not, Joe. That's a horrible thing to say. I've just received a polite notice. Will delegates please refrain from deliberately setting off the chupacabra alarm on the tunnel of goats? Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in and hear all about Civilization X from the one and only Shaun Histed-Todd.
The weather is a Tory. It's bust me tunnel of goats.
Thank you very much, Barney the Billy Goat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, take your places in the auditorium. And you'll get to see the tunnel of goats. Are you coming in, young ladies? Are you coming into the auditorium?
Of course.
Don't you want to see the tunnel of goats? There's a tunnel of goats in there. The tunnel of goats. There are two young ladies here who don't believe me. Come on in, girls. Are there or are there not a tunnel of goats in this room?
Yes.
You don't believe me, do you? There's a tunnel. It's full of goats. There's a tunnel of goats. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, come join us at the main auditorium for Mr. Barry Tadcaster. These girls don't believe in the tunnel of goats. There's the tunnel. Come on, don't you want to come to the tunnel of goats? Okay, will these young ladies don't believe there's a tunnel of goats? Can I have a volunteer who wants to crawl through the tunnel of goats?
I think Dave's by it. You can do it.
Jonathan, I would love to crawl through the tunnel of goats.
Okay, Mr. David Curtis is going to crawl through the tunnel of goats.
You're bad. Something to ruminate over. Are we ready, flocked? Shaun Histed-Todd has a curiously stained altar
about which he performs unspeakable rites, as he slaughters and brays and shrieks about this strange tabernacle. The dweller inside it manifests as a fetid column of iridescence that hungrily snaps up the things proffered to it in a predatory manner. He is also the author of the Flower Fairy books.
Good evening. Big Angle, this is my first public talk ever. I'm, as Richard said, Shaun Histed-Todd, there's the name, and I'm going to be talking about pre-Columbian contact in the Americas and a case for an advanced civilization, Civilization X. There's been, as we're generally told through academia, Christopher Columbus was the first person to discover the Americas. But archaeological accounts and finds kind of sort of question all this. One is obviously the Norse reaching the Americas first, well, in time. The Ants, excuse my pronunciation, I'm not very good at French or any other language, so my pronunciation is a little bit. Right. Anyway, Lance Meadows in Newfoundland was discovered in the 1960s, and caused a lot of controversy at the time because nobody would accept that the Vikings got to the Americas, along with many other cultures. Dated circa 1000 AD, that's 500 years before Columbus. So it's quite a benchmark difference. Lance Meadows, situated around up here, and is believed to be one of the furthest that the Vikings have reached. But there are other areas across North America which also show a lot of Viking influence and evidence that they didn't just get here. So who else made it across the oceans? The Romans, the Egyptians, the Japanese, the Chinese, or could we go right back as far as the Sumerians? Or did they all make it? Well, as you'll see, as I go through, I mean, I can only cover a very brief amount, but I will go through some areas to highlight where finds have been found. So we'll start with the Romans. Great civilization society. Obviously we all know about the Romans and how well they conquered across Europe and everything. But could it be possible that they made it to the Americas? Well, in 1933, in Toluca Valley, this terracotta head was found under 3 floors of a pre-Columbian building. It was dated to 1476. Bernard Andre and an Australian anthropologist, Robert von Heimgelden, dated a style compatible with Roman circa of the 2nd century. It's not just pottery or sculptures or anything, but also coins, Roman coins. A number of Roman coins have been found all along the eastern board, coastal area, up as far as the north. In 1963, a construction worker or engineer found a small hoard of Roman coins while excavating in the north bank of the Ohio River. Again, as all of these things, a controversial find, often put down as either lost coins from a collection that came after the close contact. But as we find, it's not the only find that's been found in the Americas. Because Roman coins have also been found in Venezuela, in Maine, Texas at the bottom of the Indian Mound, at a round rock. The mound was dated at approximately 800 AD. In 1957, near Phoenix, Alabama, a small boy found a coin in a field on the other city dating to 490 BC. So as I said, this is just a small selection of some of the finds that have been found. There's been plenty more, and as I said, it's not just coins that have been found, there's been pottery found, there's even been a suggestion that some sunken boats, which could possibly also be Roman in origin, also found. The African connection. I know when I say that all these African connection, Roman connection might sound like some kind of drug hall or the barons going on trading across, but we'll get to that. German scientists, Walter Bell-Bonova and two of her colleagues published their findings on Egyptian mummies. Now a lot of you may have read about this. It caused a lot of controversy in the 90s, purely because two of the what they found, coca and nicotine, are not found around Egypt or anywhere around the African plains or African continent or Europe or anywhere. Yet their findings proved consistently that they were present. So how could these narcotics get into mummies? Well, there are cases in America where there have been reported of cave finds with numerous artifacts that have been found, which seem to display hieroglyphics of Egyptian, Hebrew nature as well. And one of them is Russell Burroughs, known as the Burroughs Cave. It's an interesting story, an interesting find. Russell Burroughs was an amateur, I wouldn't say archaeologist, but explorer. He liked to go out looking for burial sites and looking for Native American artifacts. And on one of his journeys, or expeditions, or treasure seeking, whatever you want to call it, he stumbled across a small cave or pit that he fell in, which led to a number of caverns. And what he claimed he found within, it made a huge controversial debate. He was often put down as a hoax or a charlatan, or someone out to make a lot of money and a name for himself. But in all due, he never made any money. He never sought publicity. And some of the artifacts, which gold tablets, seems rather an expensive hoax. Do you not think? Must have been a rich man to do it. Here we can see some of the artifacts that reportedly that he found. And as I said, here we have some of the sort of gold sort of tablets and objects. Here we have a stone, stone objects that clearly shows what looks like maybe a Phoenician style ship. Inside the cave was a mummy, a mummified body that was laid out on a stone slab, surrounded by various tools and ornaments, various tablets, all with inscriptions on. Some people have decoded some of what they believe of the script to be Cleopatra II's son. And interestingly, her son was disappeared a can't remember the full story, so it's not part of what I was going to go. He apparently disappeared, and he disappears from history, from the Egyptian history records. So it is possible that he sailed the oceans, got to the Americas, and this could be his tomb. More engraved artifacts that were found. Ancient drawings were also found. As I said earlier, they seem to show an influence, appearance to show a mixture of Hebrew, Sumerian, Roman, Greek, and Egyptian. Now, having Sumerian in there, obviously that's going back way further, 5,000 years we're looking at Sumerians, and some of you are aware of with Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Ancient America. Now, with Russell Burroughs, in 1989, frustrated by the lack of academic interest or trying to get any professionals out to verify his finds, he got a lot of cranks coming out, wanting to have a look, but he refused to show them. He wanted the professionals to come out and say, again, not the attitude that you'd expect from someone who was perpetrating a hoax. So, out of frustration, he went to the cave and he dynamited it. Could be a sad loss. But in 1999, Wayne May, the editor of Ancient American, who should be pointed out was Russell Burroughs, one of his main critics, often slamming him, knocking him down, and trying to character assassinate everything about him, starts to change his mind. Recontacts Russell Burroughs, gets him to sign a contract to show him where the cave system is. Russell Burroughs takes him along and to the cave, where he does ground penetrating radar and finds that there is a tunnel system there is a cave system. On attempts to excavate the caves, sadly it appeared that when Russell Burroughs dynamited the caves, it fractured an underground river. So every time he tried to excavate, they were faced with a lot of floodwater coming in. Money is obviously the key of exploring further to obviously drain the system to get in. If there's anything left to the caves, then there's still a great find there, but it is possible that whatever Russell Burroughs found has been lost. But we never know. The stone artifacts, the gold artifacts should still be there, but the mummy, I would imagine, is long gone. Burroughs Cave, there's very little information I can find about this, but Burroughs Cave is another cave system that was found with more metal tablets. Again, as you can see, if you can't see here, strange hieroglyphic sort of symbols, texts, which doesn't correlate with Native Americans or any other tribe within the Americas. The metal cave. In Ecuador, Father Carlos Crespi, I hope I pronounced that right. As I said, my pronunciation isn't brilliant, so bear with me. He also went to the cave system, but got a Native American tribe of Indians to take him to caves, where he collected artifacts obtained from a vast system of tunnels underground, underneath the Ecuadorian jungles. No similarities were connected with indigenous tribes of the area. Here are some of the artifacts that he found. Again, he was put down as a hoaxer, a charlatan. It's a common theme you'll hear with people who make these finds, often accidental by people who are not archaeologists, so it's easy to refute what they're finding. And of course, if it goes against the grain, there's a lot of academics that they don't want to change and rewrite the books, and obviously there's a lot of money getting stuff peer reviewed. if any of you are familiar with Sumerian cultures, if we look at this one, it's a very similar style to Owens, the Sumerian god, which I will show you in a bit. But a lot of it also seems very sort of like Hebrew style. You can see the pyramid here, style here. And it seems a little bit too much for someone to hoax. Do you know what I mean? If you can see. Here we see it on it, if I pronounce it right again. And the symbol, go back. Similarity, this is the Sumerian fish-headed god, who apparently brought knowledge of civilization and other astronomical knowledge of everything. And this is what was found in Russell Barr, in the metal cave. As you can see, the stylised, the pose, very similar. Except for here, we've got a kind of lizard head, whereas here it's fish head. But the similarity is too close. Here again, we've got another sculpture here, and what's found in the metal cave. This is Sumerian from Mesopotamia, which is, incidentally, Mesopotamia is Iraq, modern day Iraq. Bordering into Turkey and Syria and everything. And of course Ecuador is Mesoamerica, South Americas. The Olmecs, fascinating culture, very little known. A lot of you are probably aware of the basalt heads and granite heads that are found. Clearly, and obviously mentioned is the African influence in the shape of the heads, the lips, and the features. But it goes a lot further. It's not just an African connection we're looking at with the Olmecs. The Olmecs were predecessors to the Mayans. It's also reported that a lot of the Mayan temple sites are possibly adopted from Olmec cultures, but I also wonder, could the Olmecs also be, could have adopted a lot of the sites that are around? And we could go back and dating these back a lot further. And also, if we look at this statue on the side here, can anyone tell me what influence that appears to have? This one here? It looks very Egyptian.
This is using a metate. It's a Central American tool for grinding.
Yeah. But as I said, you can see the stylized, there's a very similar connection or style to a lot of Egyptian as well. So I think we were looking at a cross-cultural connection where ideas have been borrowed and incorporated into each other's cultures. More Olmec sculptures. Again, here we can see maybe Japanese, Chinese influence in the features, which we all know that the Japanese and Chinese were great seafarers. And to me, it seems strange that academics find it hard to accept that there could have been a transglobal contact between these cultures. And yet we have statues which, to me, clearly show in the features that these cultures connected. So we're now back to Sumerians. 5,000 years ago. The Fuente Magna Bowl was discovered near Lake Titicaca. And it was brought to Bolivian archaeologist attention Don Max Portugal Zamora in 1958, who attempted to translate it using local tribes' dialects and glyphs and everything, but failed. And it wasn't until Dr. Alberto Marini translated the script on the bowl using Proto-Sumerian script, which is found, as I said, which is found in Mesopotamia and modern-day Iraq. And as I said, it's 5,000 years old. A fantastic find. And as we go back, you can just about see some of the scripts around here and here. And there's a full-size view of the bowl. So that's the Sumerians. And there's other evidence of tablets found which have Sumerian script also been found, but there's small stuff, and to keep it short for the talk, and I've kept it to this. So here we have 3 pyramids from around the world. Egypt, so we all know the Great Pyramids, Mexico, and Indonesia. Is it really hard to believe that these cultures didn't have connections? That they all simultaneously built pyramids in a similar style, often aligned in along the same axis and everything? And as I said, we can see here the 3 where each one is located. And it's only while I was putting the presentation together, as some of you will know, Graham Hancock and his connections as above is below, and how he pointed out that the Great Pyramids seem to mirror Orion's belt. And yet again here, with these 3 pyramids, we have them taking on a similar pattern of the Orion's belt. Admittedly, Orion's belt kind of, well, with the pyramids they kind of run downwards, where this obviously goes across. Maybe when these were built, the axis of the Earth was different or something, we don't know. Anyone know about Pyrrhus?
It was a Turkish admiral.
A Turkish admiral. Right, got it? Often known, it depicts Antarctica before it was covered in ice. And the other importance, it shows longitude and latitude long before we discovered it or worked it out. So this is Pyrrhus Reefs, or an image of Pyrrhus Reefs here. It was discovered in 1929 in Turkey. I'm sorry, my memory's gone a little bit. I believe it's Turkey, in an ancient library there. It was a famous admiral, as Ronan pointed out, of the Turkish fleet of the 16th century, 1513. As I said, it depicts Antarctica ice-free. We're told that the last time Queen Maud land could have been ice-free was 4000 BC. So how can we have a map? Not only a map that shows Antarctica ice-free, or apparently shows Antarctica ice-free, but the map was copies of copies going right back, long before Pyrrhus Reefs. He wasn't the inventor of this map. So how can we have a map that shows Antarctica? Today we mapped it through satellite and everything, but how did the ancients do it? And as I said, 4000 BC is or was the current date before it was ice-free. But recent ice core samples tell a different story. Anyone have any ideas how far back it may go? No? Okay. But recent ice core samples say Antarctica was 33 million years ago before it was ice-free. So we've got an incredible date there, and yet somehow it's been mapped. So, we've seen how our nearest ancients possibly reached across the oceans, traded with the Americas, in the tribes, pre-Columbian times, going back as far as the Sumerians. The evidence is, there's a lot more evidence out there, a lot more archaeological finds. But what else can we accredit to the ancients? How advanced can we put them? Now, I class myself as a free thinker. I don't buy into anything, but I just ask questions. I can't help myself but question everything. And one of the things is when I look around at the archaeological record around the globe, we're faced with mysteries. We're told the pyramids were built a certain way using ramps of 4 or 5 miles long to get the stones up. Yeah, it's just incredible. And sometimes we find that some of this information isn't quite right. Sometimes it's like they can't answer something, it's like they fill the gaps in. It looks good on paper, but when you start to question it, it starts to crumble. So the next section I'm looking at, is how old is human antiquity? How far can civilization go back? Have we been here before to our current and present technological age? Is there a possibility that the ancients have been to where we are today, or further, or even more advanced? The megalithic mysteries around the world. We're going to look at Pumapunka, Tiwanaku in Bolivia, Baalbek in Lebanon, I can still wait there. My wife can do done the spell checking. And the Great Pyramids, which we all know, but there's just a little bit on them. Here we have some megalithic construction around Pumapunka. That might actually be Tiwanaku actually. And if you read of this, the tradition says that Pumapunka is where the world was created. And if you ever look at images of the site and the way some of the slabs are laying about, it could also be taken that it's where it ended, where it was destroyed, because it's quite a mess. But what has remained is fascinating. I won't read through all this. This is taken off Wikipedia just to give you a bit of information about the site. The name means the door of the puma. Complex consisting of an unwalled western core and a central unwalled esplanade, a terrace platform of mound that is faced with megalithic stone and a walled eastern core. Here we have Pumapunka, or Pumapunku, and Tiwanaku up here. It's a terrace earthen mound, as I said, faced with megalithic blocks, and here we have some of the blocks created by ancient people with stone tools, possibly metal tools, depending on what date you want to accept when they were made. Personally, I feel that these stretch far back in antiquity. And when you look at the sheer structure of these, it's almost like they were moulded. And if they were carved or with normal stonemason techniques, then we're clearly looking at a severely advanced technological civilization. Certainly not something you'd expect our ancient, or what we're told our ancients were capable of. Yet here we have solid evidence that they were capable. Again here, we can see more structure. And if we look at here, such smooth masonry work, boreholes, were they drilled? Or again, could it be moulding? This is all granite work. And then if we look at this one, you can almost think this is a modern construction site. The brickwork is the perfection of it, the smoothness of the work, stonework. As I say, it's incredible. And again, this is the Tabernacle, and again, smooth, perfectly sharp edges, quarried from, I believe, at least 20 miles away from the nearest quarry. They managed to get these. It's also a high altitude area, so we look at the work that was gone in to build these, to get these stones up to the sides, and then to finish them off so smoothly. But there is one theory which has come out since the 90s. It's a new science discovery of a method of what's called geopolymorphs. It's a science that was discovered in, I think it was, if I recall, 1997. The ability of making a cement that, when it sets, is almost indistinguishable to granite. And today it's used by the military to build, when they go into war zones, they get their bases built up quickly with granite blocks. But academics, Egyptologists, archaeologists refute the idea that the ancients could have had a science that we discovered in 97, 5,000 years before us. But to me, it's a plausible theory that some of these stones, some of these structures were moulded using a similar type of cement or the same science, poured into moulds and placed. And we could say maybe the same with the Egyptian pyramids. Rather than hauling these, some of the 40-ton blocks up to a pyramid, why not just put a mould in, fill it, move it, and you're cutting the time down and the ability to get these constructions up. So it is possible that the ancients had an advanced science in this sort of type of cement. Tabernacle statues, interesting. I put these in because they have a similarity to some other famous statues around the world, or in the world. Can anyone see what they...
Easter Island.
Easter Islands, that's right. And it's a style that we find in other places. When we come across statues like this, where the hands are held at the belly, and the upright torsos of body, and they all seem to face the same direction. So the question is, why do they face the same direction? What were they telling? And why the same styles? Again, we're having another contact here between different cultures. And then we have Devo on tour in Easter Island. And some of you probably don't know who Devo are. They're an American alternative rock band that wear funny little hats like this. Baalbek in Lebanon. This site has fascinated me for a number of years now. It's situated in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. Stones each measuring 19 metres long by 42 metres. Absolutely astronomical size. Almost the land of the giants, we could say. Hewn from natural crystalline limestone, with a specific gravity of about 2.7 miles from the quarry, 1 kilometre away. That shouldn't be a mile, isn't it? With an estimated weight of 870 tonnes. We would have trouble today to even lift one of them. I don't even know if we have the capability of lifting one of these. Yet they managed to get it up on a plateau, 3 of them, which the Romans later adopted to build a large Colosseum on. And I mean, if we go to this, again here, you can see the sheer size of these. How are we to accept the ancient people, which we're told had primitive tools, copper tools, possibly hemp fibre rope. Get these. How did they move them? I think, to me, the evidence is we're looking again at civilization far more advanced, far more technologically advanced. With machinery, it could be lifts, cranes or something, but it's obviously something which is almost to our level of advancement, maybe even further. So we're on to the Great Pyramids. Total of 6 million stones for the 3 pyramids. There's 2.5 million for each of the large ones, and 1 million, if I'm correct, for the smaller. And we're told that they were built within 100 years to perfection. There are so many anomalies with Egypt. A lot that doesn't get reported, a lot doesn't get shown. There is stonework which geologists have said show clear evidence of tool working, lathe work, cutting tools. Some even say lasers, precision on some of the sculptures and the faces. But to build the stones, to build these pyramids, within 100 years, we're told that they were done with labour. Some say slave labour, others feel manual labour out of loyalty to the king or the pharaoh. But is this possible? Can we really accept that mass labour built these mysterious pyramids in a 100-year gap? And I'm going to quote Lloyd Pye, who wrote the book Everything You Know Is Wrong, book one of Human Origin. It's a fascinating book. Lloyd Pye does tend to go to the ancient alien theory, but I like to keep things a little bit down to earth. And we'll keep the green men out of this one. I'm not close to the idea of ancient astral connections or having contact. Everything's possible. And I think it's a bit naive to sort of say no, it is impossible and they never happen, but we're not going there. I want to keep it down to earth and looking at an ancient civilization that done it. But it's, to quote him, to start with 100 years, being conservative with the date, at 12 months a year, that's 12 months total, dividing 6 million stones by 1,200 months equals 5,000 stones laid per month. 30 days per month means 160 stones laid per day. A 24-hour day means 6.9 stones laid every hour around the clock. So even if we, and as I said, even if we grant the most generous figures possible, Egyptologists have to account for 7 stones laid every hour, every day, for 100 years. No breaks, no bad weather, no accidents, no downtime of any kind. Means we get 1 stone fitted into place every 8.5 minutes. That's an achievement, isn't it? This is what Egyptologists want you to accept. And I'm not going to rubbish at what Egypt, they do know their stuff, but if they can't explain something, they put stuff to us, the masses, the public, who aren't that very informed or don't want to do their research, to accept what they want. That kind of says to me that some of what they teach is flawed. Göbekli Tepe, and I've asked trying to get the name out right, pronunciation right, has pushed civilization scientifically back beyond what we were led to believe. Fascinating sight. I mean, there was so much about this place that's been discovered. It's just too much to go into for this lecture. But it was, it dates back 5,000 years is the period civilization begins with Mesopotamia. Göbekli Tepe predates it. It goes back to 11,000 years. We were supposed to be hunter-gatherers, using spears, arrows, flint tools, and certainly no civilization we were told about at the time. And yet with what was uncovered, there's some grand monolith sites with high precision carvings, masonry work. Only a quarter, or less than a quarter of the site has so far been excavated. It's been shown to be astronomical. Each megalithic stone is adorned with various animals and fauna that is believed to have been around the area. Serpent snakes, I can't recall exactly the type of scorpions and all that. In some aspects, when you read about what's on the stones, there's something that kind of sort of niggles at you. Are we looking at an ancient zoo and what the pillars actually represent? This is what I kind of see, where there's sort of like little signposts saying, this enclosure held this animal. But we don't know. It's been put down as a sacred site, a temple, but we find that that's often what we get to hear, is that these sites are often temples. They're religious places. It always seems to be religious. So, with the ancients, with all these cultures around the world, these ancient cultures, a lot of them talk about a golden age, or golden ages. Some cultures talk about 4 ages. I believe the Mayans had 4 ages, but one of them is the Indian Sangres, the Rig Veda. A huge antiquity in their history. They say their history goes back millions of years. And the Rig Vedas have some fascinating insights or articles that refer to what Vimanas. Vimanas to the Indians, Sikhs and everything, were flying crafts. They say that they had their power of flying, powered with Mercury engines, able to cross large land masses or areas at incredible speeds. Some even state that they had in space flight in some. All sounds very fantasy and myth, but when we look into about the Vimanas, the section on it, they tell you how to instruct your pilots, how to train your pilots, how to dress them to protect them from solar flares. It tells you how to build Mercury engines. And as I understand, there was one person who actually took the manuscript, an engineer, and actually built a Mercury engine from the written text. They talk about weapons of mass destruction. And other cultures, the Sumerians talk about a war between the gods, and some of the accounts of also sound like nuclear war. All this is often reported as myth, but as I find, the more you look at myths, you can sometimes find that myths have a general basis in truth. It has a root there. As you'll find, with the Bible, archaeologists have found a lot of sites, ancient sites, for what has been reported as originally reported as myth. So do we have any cases where maybe weapons of mass destruction could have been used? Nuclear power, it might not be nuclear, it could have been some other devastating weapon. But they refer to them as flying arrows and flaming arrows and various things. Talks of a large wind that would poison and destroy and kill everything. And when you read through it, you just cannot help but picture a nuclear blast. And we're not talking about a meteorite blast or anything like that. And we have Harappa in Mohenjo-Daro. And again, I hope I pronounced that right. Sorry? Mohenjo-Daro, is that?
Mohenjo-Daro.
Mohenjo-Daro. Thank you. The site is part of the Indus Valley of civilization, located in the province of Sindh, Pakistan. Believed to have come into existence around 2600 BCE. 44 human skeletons were found. The skeletons were all found laid in the streets as if they just fell. They were running from something or fleeing from something, or whatever hit them, they fell. The bones or skeletons were 50 times more radioactive than is considered normal. As today, it's still highly today. Crystalline fused and melted areas within the area. So is this a case for a nuclear fallout or weapons of mass destruction? Something happened, and you won't get that levels of radiation from a meteorite exploding over the atmosphere. There's no crater or anything to suggest otherwise. So what other ideas can we look at to have created such radioactive skeletons, or why did they fall within the streets? Some were found holding onto each other, as if they were holding hands. It's clearly, some tragedy of great magnitude had happened there. There were some images of the skeletons, a bit gruesome, but it was to some people, maybe. Have you got any young audiences? No? So, when we question our antiquity, we're told that modern anatomical humans arrived here 200,000 years ago. That line there, basically, as you can see here, is where we start. We cover this part. The Earth is 4.54 million years old. So we're starting from around here. When I look at this, I think it's an incredible amount of time for humans not to have been here. Why should we have just occupied this end? So I question, is it possible that civilization has risen and fallen through global catastrophe? We could have had civilization arrive to our present state technologically, let's say twice in this time frame. Why can it not be possible? If we had any civilization here that have risen, that had flight, space travel, electronic age, there'd be nothing left today. If we take it on the basis of today, all our data is held, more today is held digitally. We've put it onto our smartphones, to computers, and everything. Before that, it was paper. Well, paper doesn't last. Wouldn't even last, 400 years? Be nothing. 1,000 years, be gone. Any buildings, any construction sites that we would have had over 4,000 years would be more or less eradicated. So there's plenty of space for an advanced civilization to have come globally to be active and in contact with each other, like we are today. And something has taken that civilization down and sent it back to the Dark Ages. Now, as I said, how advanced were they? And our fragile civilization, as I just explained, we are very fragile. Our civilization, we accept that we're here, we're stable, whatever happens, we will overcome it. But we don't accept our mortality as a sort of civilization. That we can be sent back to the Dark Ages, we can be sent back to primitive times, and all our knowledge gone. But there will be some survivors around, scientists. Can you imagine what our governments would do if they knew an impending catastrophe that threatened civilization? If they were to put them somewhere safe, you know, to secure our heritage, our legacy. They would protect the scientists, the politicians. Joe Public, you lot, we're just cattle, you know. Sure, some of our population will be put into safe places where they'd hope we'd be safe. And then once it arrives, we'll be told or put out to rebirth civilization, to bring back the knowledge, to train, to reteach. The scientists will pass on the knowledge, our astrological knowledge. This is where I believe our idea of gods and goddesses have come from survivors of previous advanced civilizations that have carried on that technology, passing on. And over the years, maybe the memory has faded. When they see people coming back with these fantastic future, Vimanas or whatever, they're seen as gods coming down from the skies, but they're just humans, survivors. And maybe towards the Ice Age, or during the Ice Age maybe, it depends how far we want to push the time scale back. There would have been a large exodus to fertile lands. Maybe this is where, with Göbekli, Mesopotamia, is where civilization rebirthed. Genesis is mentioned in the Bible and many other creation stories within religious texts and everything. It's not religious, it's a rebirth. I think we're looking, or possibly looking at a rebirthing of civilization, kick-starting it again after a great calamity. So what could have brought it to an end? Well, obviously we all know that asteroids pose a large threat. But there's also solar blasts, solar flares, and there's been evidence that throughout the Earth's history, there's been huge, massive solar blasts that have come, not just from our sun, but from the galactic space from full stop. And these can have serious consequences on Earth. In 1859, there was an incident that occurred. An amateur sun gazer or an astrologer observed two flashes on the sun. Later, that was also observed from Kew Gardens, and it became known as the Carrington event. A few days after this, the flares on the sun were spotted. All hell broke loose. Solar flare hit Earth. At the time, it was just telegraph systems, but it sent them into chaos. Sparks, transformers melted down, blew up, knocked out the telegraph system from all across Europe, and North America failed. And obviously, in those times, in 1859, they didn't have the technology we have today. If it happened today, it will be devastating. Just imagine how much of our civilization is run on electricity. And I don't want to go into sort of a doom sort of theory, but it needs to be pointed out. Our nuclear power stations are all kept safe with electricity. In the Americas, there's 160 nuclear power plants, with I believe another 80 to be built. If there's no electricity, if a solar storm takes out our electricity, all those plants will go into meltdown. Fukushima in Japan from the tsunami will be a blip. So we can see easily how fragile our civilization is. So, I will leave you. Have we been here before? Or did our ancestors surpass us and go even beyond advanced technology and leave us with a legacy of of megalithic stones, pyramids, all around the world, structures. Because if our archaeologists, if our civilization was to end, and we go back to Dark Age, we lose all the written history, the digital stuff, and archaeologists, 2,000, 3,000 years' time, start uncovering us, they will assume that we're a civilization that didn't have written language because there was nothing written down. They will almost look at us almost as a primitive culture. And we'll be just a blip, just a smidge on the history timeline. And that's the motto. I hope I've covered in time.
You've done it wonderfully, Shaun.
Okay, thank you all for listening.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got time for a couple of questions. So, question. Gentleman halfway up the back on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Hang on a second, but I better give you the microphone.
As I said at the beginning, please be gentle. My first time. I'm a virgin.
I've got thoughts on Western mass destruction.
Yeah.
And then recently there's been some theories on Arthurian myths about King Arthur and Excalibur and the fact that his battles managed to destroy, I think in one case, quoted 12 countries in one go. A lot of these battles in the mythology of Arthurian legend appear to coincide with meetings of comets, and people have posited that it's possible that they may have been comet impacts that destroyed a lot of these places during the battles. Do you think this is possible as opposed to meteors?
Yeah, it's always a possibility there. I mean, as I said, asteroids impacts, it was always happening. But the battles, it depends what kind of sort of battles we're looking at.
Well, you're claiming that we're obviously talking about Excalibur here, is capable of destroying 12 countries in one battle. That's
right.
Clearly not a conventional battle, is it? So, and they had said that this possibly coincides with the transit of various comets and things at the time. And a lot of mythology is obviously based on things people don't understand. So celestial things happening is obviously going to be interpreted by the people at the time as being some sort of mysterious happening.
Yeah, sure.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, sure. And with celestial battles, as I said, we don't know exactly how what level they had. I mean, we've got vitrified forts around and everything, which show that there was an immensity of some sort of power. We not knowing exactly what the causes were. So,
it's a good explanation for people like laid out skeletons, the sand turned to glass, things like that, the intense heat things.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's a lot of sites in around Egypt. There's where sand's been turned to glass and everything. So I mean, I'm always open to any possibilities of what comes through, and obviously new information, new discoveries. There's always that possibility. So open it up.
Right at the back, is that Richard?
Yes.
Is there any firm dating for your various sites? And in the case of the radioactive skeletons, what kind of radiation was it?
Well, I can't go into exactly what type of radiation it was. All I can report on is what I've researched, is that the bones, that they were radioactive. They have been likened to the same as a nuclear blast, from similarities to say what they've done in the States from their test and everything. But obviously not being a scientist in radiation and everything, I can't tell you what type of radiation it will be. As for dating, I should have put the date up there. I think we're looking we're looking about 3,000 years for the site. Sorry?
Not per se, no. Although there is some high energy electromagnetic radiation from comets and large meteors. It produces X-rays amongst other things.
Yeah.
But you can get glassification of sand from meteor impacts, but you wouldn't get radionucleotides out of it that would be radioactive.
No, but that's, as I mentioned, from what I've researched into it, it has been stated that the radioactivity doesn't come from anything like a meteorite or anything for impact or anything like that. You mentioned, as I said, like solar active electromagnetic fields and X-rays. As I mentioned, with a solar blast, it could be a reason for it. That could be a cause behind the radioactivity. And not knowing, as I said, the full impact being the scientific part of it, you know, exactly whether it could create skeletons 50 tons radioactive to what they should be. You know, really, I mean, there's a scientist in that field really is the part that should be answering that.
Okay, two more questions. Who we have? Questions? At the front, Silas. Silas first before Bob.
Oh, no, go, sorry.
Okay, let both have it. Now, can this be a sensible question, Brandon?
This is a sensible. All my questions are sensible. I've noticed how you've been directing Joanna away from me as though I was about to ask something inane. Inanity is foreign to my nature. I know nothing to do with inanity. Before I ask you a question, actually, I'd like to know what this source about King Arthur's sword destroying 12 countries is. I'm familiar with all the basic Arthurian texts, and it doesn't say in any of them that Excalibur destroyed 12 countries.
I'm only relying on documentary I saw on BBC 4 about 2 weeks ago. So.
Put not thy faith in television. Actually, what it does say in the Arthurian texts is Arthur took part in 12 battles, and I think that is what he wielded Excalibur in, if you read it, but certainly not 12 countries. Right, now getting around to you. No, seriously, when you were mentioning the fragility of our particular civilization, I feel you left one thing out, and that is supervolcanic eruption.
Yeah.
75,000 years ago, Mount Toba erupted and gave the Earth something like a nuclear fallout atmosphere, the whole Earth. It is even conjectured that this isn't certain, that there may have been only 1,000 breeding couples of Homo sapiens left after it. They were all in Africa at that time, as far as we know. But the other thing is that Yellowstone Park has a similar volcano in it.
That's right.
And it's due to go off any day now, or at least it's actually overdue. So I would think that's the most proximate danger to civilization, and it will certainly wipe out civilization as we know it.
Sure. I mean, obviously supervolcanoes are a huge threat and would disrupt our civilization immensely. And as you said, the park, it's escaped me. National Yellowstone Park. Yes, it is a boiling pot, and it does seem to show a lot of high activity, which, it's
been erupting regularly, and it's now 300,000 years overdue.
That's right.
By the way, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to know that there is a small child watching. Any other questions?
I'm intrigued by the Mercury engine of the Vimanos, the flying vehicles.
Yeah.
You say one was built?
Yeah, I tried to find the article for this research, but I was unable to actually. It's one of the many books that I've read. I was reading about how this engineer took, when he first looked at the Vimana text from the Rig Veda, and he took the instructions and actually got a working model of the book. And I tried to find. I was trying to find which book it was and re-find it, and I wanted to include it in here, but you helped me to get a mercury engine working.
But I mean, we were talking about metallic mercury.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work as a propulsion system?
Well, obviously not being an engineer, I don't know how it works. I mean, it's when you look into the text about Vimanas, it gives you about how to heat them out through solar rays, and it gives a whole. It's like a whole working manual. So to try to pinpoint through, obviously a lot of it is very tedious and boring if you're not an engineer, which I'm not.
Do you have the reference in the Rig Veda, or where in the Rig Veda?
Not at hand, but I can certainly source it out for you.
I'd be interested because I have a translation at home and can't find the appropriate verse. I'd be interested.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, with the translation of Vimana, I mean, there are some, there's some that say that Vimana, it just means temple and everything. But when you look at a lot of the translations, it seems hard to accept that what they were writing about was purely a temple.
I've certainly heard that it translates very well as flying machine.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, I'm intrigued by Göbekli Tepe, that Turkish site.
Yes.
It does look very Tiwanaku-like. But the name, as I've said, would mean dog mountain.
Right, okay.
G and K, but Göbek is a dog. Anyway, by the by.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's been one slight alteration. The weather is lousy, so unfortunately there won't be a nature walk at all this afternoon. But tomorrow afternoon, when we are scheduled to have the results of the nature walk, you're actually going to have the results of how Nick and Lars wandered drunkenly around my garden with a camera and some lights and a beetle trap, because there's still quite a lot of interesting insights into the local fauna. So, the next thing, ladies and gentlemen, there are still a few of you who have not registered your camping permits with Graham. You can't do it at the moment because he is actually out taking Tony Whitehead back to Barnstable Station. But there are raffle tickets for sale, I believe. Are there, Nicola?
There are.
There are raffle tickets for sale. There is food for sale. There is drinks for sale. There are books for sale. There's all sorts of groovy things for sale. There is also a tunnel of goats. So music might go speak. And book your dinners. If you haven't booked your dinner yet for tomorrow, please do so. And if you haven't got the money to pay for tomorrow, it doesn't matter, just book it. And I think that's